So I started applying the texture on my pinch pot today, and I'm gonna go over the next steps. And my pinch pot's leather hard because as I'm squeezing it, I'm not able to indent the shape, but also I can still use my nails to make marks on it. I don't want to do that, but I was just showing you that it's not quite bone dry. Now, you're gonna know when your clay is dry as a bone and it's gonna start showing up as white patches. If your clay looks this white, it's bone dry. Okay, I had this example to show you probably 2 weeks ago, and I've just been letting this sit out. So this thing's dry as a bone. It's ready to go in the kiln this week. Now, if your clay is too dry, it's not leather hard, you can take a paper towel and saturate it. So I tend to use a paper towel. If it's really dry, you need to use a rag. So I've put this under the water, I've wrung it out, and I can wrap it in a little blanket and get the clay moist. I can also use my spray bottle to mist, but I don't want to mist directly inside. I'm adding texture most likely just to the outside. You can add texture inside too, but you want to spray it upside down. And if you do spray the inside, absorb the water immediately, because if you have dry clay and you spray water on it, you want to evenly distribute that water. Now, if it's super duper dry, I use a rag like a kitchen towel and I get it completely wrung out with water, and then I wrap it in a blanket. If it's super moist, you're just gonna leave it out like this as is. I've been leaving mine out for the majority of the day and just misting it lightly in between classes. I'm working on the same one as a sample, okay? Now, I had a couple ideas planned, and I'm sticking with the original ideas that I had, and I'm doing lines, carved lines. Then I am using a nail to indent. I'm also using my carving tool to remove clay. And so I'm doing a variety of approaches, and I'm gonna do this pattern all the way around. Now, to ensure that my lines are evenly spaced out, I measured them with a ruler before I started carving. So I took my ruler and I made them 1 inch apart. And every inch I took a pen and I made a mark in the clay. And I went all the way around the form because I didn't want to have 2 lines that were really close together. So I was like, okay, if 1 inch is good, I'll go with that. If I need to space it out less or more so that there's an even width in between each line, I can do that. People who are mathematicians or people who enjoy doing math, the proportions are everything. I'm not a big math person, but when it comes to art and math, I enjoy it. Okay, so I've gone all the way around and I made these little lines. Now, I'm not going to just carve a line, boom, because I want to make sure that it's straight. So I'm going to take the sharp end or the angled end of my wooden knife and I'm going to rock it back and forth to create a pathway for carving. And then reverse the direction of it so you can get down towards the foot. Okay, I'm going to do that again here. Some people like just indenting with this tool. You don't have to carve. You could just deepen the line by dragging this tool down like so. That's an option. Now, if you don't have a steady hand, you might use a ruler to line it up or a straight edge. You don't have to have a ruler specifically. Okay, so I'm going to now start carving, and I'm going to take my loop tool and notice how I'm holding the bowl at an angle, holding it on its side. and it's not indenting the shape, also confirming that the project is leather hard. So I'm going to go over that line and carve down. Notice how the clay is not sticking to my tool and it's coming off in one shebang. I just tap it on the table after each pass. Okay, then I can take my finger and go over it, and then I can take a super lightly damp sponge in combination with my finger to refine. Get all the burrs and boogers off, and then I'm going to go over it one more time. And somebody asked earlier, how deep do I carve, Miss I? Well, you want to carve a couple centimeters. If you carve unevenly or too deep, you might run the risk of having a fragile spot. You might be able to add clay back into the opening where you carved, but it's tricky at leather hard to add clay. You're definitely going to want to slip and score anything that you add. I'm just going over the line before. Okay, so my pattern is line carved and then nail mark. So I'm going to take this nail, I'm going to take my hand and support the inside area so I can really get a firm pressure on that. I don't want to push too hard, and if the clay is too dry, I might crack it. So again, finding that middle of the road, that leather hard stage. Okay, one more here. Smoothing before I apply. And I'm rolling it top to bottom, side to side. I'm kind of doing a circular motion so that I get an even impression. Okay, so with these little indentations I started carving, I use the rounded side of my loop tool. And I drag the clay, and then I use the loop tool in the opposite direction to remove a little more. And then just cleaning it up, getting the clay off my tool and going for the next divot. Now notice how I'm avoiding carving too close to the lip or near my foot. It's fragile there. I don't want to run the risk of cracking it or having those connections loose or cracking the lip. Okay, so the pattern's just going to keep on going. Okay. Now I also have this stamp that I bought at the clay supply store that says love backwards. So when I go to press it into the form, I get that indentation. So same thing if you're using a stamp, you're going to line it up to where you want it, rocking it back and forth and then side to side. And I had already stamped there, so let me clean that up a bit. And then going over it with my sponge. And then I'm going to do it one more time. Boom. All right, so I'm going to get the pinch pot out of the way, and I'm going to show you a couple other things before I go over the chalk. I grabbed a piece of fresh clay. So this clay isn't leather hard, it's plastic. And like an artist samples their colors when they're painting before applying it to the canvas, I'm going to sample some textures on this piece of scrap clay. And I'm just going to hit the clay flat. This is making a slab. A slab is one of the methods of clay construction, one of the 4 methods, along with pinch, coil, and wheel throwing. And I'm going to hit it on the clay or on the flat surface to flatten the clay. It's about 1/4 inch, about the width of my pinch pot. And then I'm going to take my metal rib tool and smooth it just like the exterior of my pot, so it's smooth and refined. And you're seeing some marbling in the clay. This is 2 different clays that I mixed together. Okay, then I'm going to flip it over and do the same to the other side because I'm going to test out a variety of textures. So I do this on a sample piece of clay, and you can let it get leather hard if you want to see what it really looks like. on the form. And then I'm going to just start messing around and trying out some ideas before I apply them to my actual pot. So if you're changing your mind on the texture that you put in your planning sketch, try it first on a piece of scrap clay. So here is a shell. Let's see what this looks like. Again, rocking it back and forth and side to side. That's pretty cool. That looks cool. Now the clay's a little soft to do this, like I said. What about pasta rotini? Let's see what this one looks like. That is sweet. I like the looks of that. So if you're rolling pasta on your piece, you might want to do it before it's leather hard. Okay, what about the top of a highlighter? That's pretty sweet as well. Liking the looks of that. How about my fork? The fork's a little bent, so maybe getting a fork that's in better shape. Again, I have my nail, but if you have a bolt, which is like a hexagon, that makes a pretty cool texture as well. The end of the needle works really well for polka dots. Or you can make a little flower pattern. Also, the end of your wire cutter. That makes a little bit bigger of an indentation. Maybe you want a variety of dots in different sizes. Okay, nice. All right, I have some shells here. I'm gonna try these shells now. It's okay. That one didn't look so great. That's what it looks like. Kind of looks like a little wave, so not my favorite. Glad I tried it. What about this guy? And it's stuck in there because the clay's not quite leather hard. Also not my favorite. Glad I tried that. All right, I'm gonna flip it over and try a few more things. I like the looks of taking this end of the wooden knife tool and pressing. That looks pretty good. You can do a similar approach with the popsicle stick, but just a little bit deeper. Okay. You can use this tool to create indentations as well versus carving. Again, when the clay is too soft, you're gonna have trouble with that, so wait until it's leather hard. Okay, what about the starfish? Rolling it, pressing side to side. Awesome. Maybe that would look good right in the bottom of the pinch pot. Kind of hard to press on a curved form. Okay. And so we can do carving with the tools, removing material. What if I wanted to add clay? I had one design that I did where I wanted to make a little cactus on the side. Some of you had flowers, or maybe you wanted to make a little face. That's fine too. So I would roll some little coils. I'm gonna roll some baby coils here. Not too thick. Easier to roll little coils. Sorry, I keep hitting the camera. And then imagining if this was part of my pinch pot, I would want to score this. Add some slit. Stick that on there, go over it with the sponge. Also pressing down. Joining it with my wooden knife. And then I'm going to cut this one in half. Little cactus. Okay, so we can have raised texture. And I would want to slip and score both parts, because when we get to the leather hard stage, we can't just stick on Band-Aids like we can in the plastic stage. We have to ensure that it's going to stay on. So once things are leather hard and we want to attach, we're going to slip and score any attachments. Okay, so we can do a combination. Maybe I want to have the sun off in the distance. And that's one side of my pinch pot. That could look pretty cool too. Maybe there's a little shell down below. Didn't really come out so good because it's plastic. Little bird. All right, so that's really it for the texture part of it. There is one last thing I want to show you, and then I'm going to let you apply what you saw. So the last thing we need to do is the chop. So I've already written my name, and then for the last class, I wrote the word dream. I'm going to do one more word right here. I'm going to do the word peace. So I'm going to make sure that my surface is flat where I'm going to add the chop and it's smooth and refined. And I'm going to take a pen, and with this pen, I'm going to write the word peace. I tend to write in a kind of cursive style. And you're seeing that there's little burrs and boogers here. And so to get rid of those, I'm going to use a dry paintbrush or a dry sponge, no water, and just brush those away and get them off of my piece. And then I'm going to go over it again, making sure the pen's clean. Going a little deeper each time. And I'm blowing on it to get those little pieces off. And then I'm going to add a little water to smooth. I'm going to go over it one last time, cleaning the pen almost each pass that I make. I'm going to use my finger to smooth it. No water. All right, so when you glaze, if it's deep enough, you can leave the glaze in those areas for your chop. And that's really it for today. So I'm going to have you work on this for homework. If you need to let it dry, let it sit out for an hour or two, check on it in between. If it's too dry, wrap it in a moist paper towel or a moist rag. And then tomorrow, checking in to be accounted for attendance wise, and then working all session on the line and getting one on one support as needed. So I want you to